Are we good? Am I live? Oh, I'm live, and it looks like everything's streaming. Okay, I am still. I'll quit. I'll quit saying it. You know that I'm not the best at this as of yet, but I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm learning. Learning is good. Drudge. Walmart weakest growth in years. You know, you wonder. Well, I won't go into it today. I won't go into it today. I have theories about Walmart. I have theories about everything. Is that good? I don't know. I have no idea. Hey, today we're going to get back into Behold the Pale Horse. I'm going to reiterate a lot of what I said yesterday. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I think I'm right. I think I might be onto something. Actually, I know I'm onto something. I have to say I know it, and I have to sound absolutely sure of myself because that's what gets people to listen. If you say maybe this is what's going on, people don't listen. And if you say, I think this is it, you got to do the Rush Limbaugh thing and just say, yeah, I know. What was he? The Excellence in Broadcasting, EIB. How many times did we support Republicans just because people like Rush Limbaugh told us to, without ever actually saying, hey, what do these specific Republicans believe? Is that how we ended up with all these Lindsey Grahams everywhere? Is that how we ended up with war as a selling point? You need to support this guy. He's ready to go to war. Oh, by the way, and I remember this argument, war is good for the economy. Yeah. Everybody knows that. Yeah, actually, when we go to war, a lot of times our stock market, we do well. Especially these specific companies. Interesting. But that's who we are. We're in this really interesting spot in American history where we have a true chance. If voices can get out there, now that's the big question. Can the right voices get out there? But we're in an interesting inflection point, may I say. I should say. I will say. We're at an interesting inflection point where the right have a golden opportunity to say, you know what, we don't like all this protectionism and this big business tomfoolery within the Iron Triangle. Remember what I told you the Iron Triangle is? It's the marriage, the union between lobbyists, corporations, especially these multinational corporations, these big boys, too big to fail, you might say, and Congress, the federal government, the legislature, those that are making the laws. And then you've got the Federal Reserve, which supposedly isn't even part of our government. So the president's like, I'm going to fire you, and they're like, you can't. You can't. Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Sure seems like it's those guys that are setting the interest rates, doesn't it? Which is interesting. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. We have a very, very, very unique ability right now. And in a single member district system, which is what we have here in America, first past the post, if you get 51%, you win it all. You're always going to have two parties. I really like what Tucker Carlson said about a third party, but a third party can be, you can have somebody like Ross Perot show up who dumps a bunch of truth on both sides, that both sides are like, they split and they go, oh man, I didn't think about that. But then more likely than not, you're going to take votes away from one of those two major players, the Republicans or the Democrats, right? Tucker was like, hey, maybe we'll have realignment. Yeah, realignment usually happens after something very big and often something very violent. It's why we've only seen two of them. So if we have realignment, we want it to be peaceful, right? I know a lot of Republicans would love to to just get rid of liberals, put them in camps. I know for a fact there's a lot of liberals would put Republicans in camps like that. And violence is never, ever, ever the answer against your own citizens. It just isn't. It's not an option. Ever. So if we were to have a realignment, a true realignment without violence, that would be amazing. It would be historic. It would be the biggest thing that ever happened in American politics. And right now we have this weird spot that we're in where we just saw Obama, Bush ended his presidency in the gutter. Obama ended his presidency in the gutter. Joe Biden was the biggest flop in human history. I mean, Biden, they were comparing him to Carter. Well, Carter was actually a pretty nice guy, a relatively good person. Most people would agree. You hope, you think, I do believe. He had some crazy socialist, semi-communist ideas, but he was a nice guy that wanted the best for his country. He loved his country. That's important. How many of these politicians that we watch, they say they love their country, but they really love themselves, right? And right now we're in this weird spot where the Republicans, if they want to, if they choose to, take this high road where they decide, I care about the people. Republicans are so used to saying, I care about the people, so I'm going to take care of business because that's where wealth comes from. You generate wealth with the free market. They say that. And then you get back to that iron triangle. It's called a revolving door as well. There's a revolving door within the iron triangle. You become a lobbyist. You work for the company. You get a job in the bureaucracy. Not necessarily, and I mean, you can also run for office. A lot of guys that run for office, they become congressmen. They rub elbows, and they get done, and they go get a job at some defense contractor or with big pharma. These corporations that they need corporate capture in order for their business model to work. And that's why you have things called too big to fail. Well, we can't let General Motors, have to fire people. Even though that's the way the market works. What if General Motors hadn't been bailed out? What if Ford had, well, actually, I don't think Ford took the money, go look at a Chevy. Go look at just a Chevy car versus a Ford. It's almost like a parable. You can see why we were, for those of you that don't remember, General Motors got bought out. A lot of us said, oh, government motors. Well, go look at these cars. It looks like something the Soviet Union would have produced. They're the most boring things you ever saw in your entire life. Ford actually has some really interesting things going on, but they're all left in the dust by Tesla. Have you tried full self-driving, like actual full self-driving? It works. It works, and nobody else even uses the same technology. Now you might say, well, Elon, he's taken government funds as well, and there's no doubt that he got in on I think these there was these. I don't even know if he took government funds, but I do know that there was these incentives to get a green vehicle, and he took advantage of it, and you can't blame him. It's like when they said, "Well, Mr. Trump, you took advantage of tax loopholes to keep as much of your own money as you can," and he said, "Hell yeah, I did." You're dealt, you work with the hand you're dealt. But do you think if Tesla was falling apart right now, that the government would step in and say, "Wow, too big to fail. We've got to keep Tesla alive"? It's like he has the number one selling car in the world. But do you really think that you would have Democrats the way that you had Democrats saying, "Oh, we've got to save Detroit"? Do you think that they'd say, "Oh, we've got to save Texas"? No, not in a million years. But you get these corporations that's their thing is, how many lawyers do you think they have at their disposal? And infinite money, infinite liquidity, I guess. I don't know. I'm an idiot. I am an idiot. But we're in this weird spot right now where if you're a Republican and you recognize that there is this giant leviathan, that this is all one big thing. We're in an oligarchy. It's something so complicated that we can't really name it. We're not capitalists necessarily. We're not socialists necessarily. We're bureaucratic as all hell. But you can still make it by starting something new and creating something new and getting it to market, thanks to Silicon Valley, who is now fighting for its life. And you've got geniuses like Sergey Brin that they get it, that understand that as soon as those billionaires move out because of a billionaire tax, those poor people are left in the dust. Sergey Brin's out in California trying to save the impoverished. And they're going to say, "Oh, he's trying to save himself. He just wants more. He wants more money." We like to think that these guys are just these money grubbers, and they live high on the hog in every aspect of their lives. And I would imagine that if you're a billionaire, health, you probably put a lot of money and resources and time into your own health, I would hope. But you see Elon Musk, he's given up most of his creature comforts very publicly because he wants people to understand that that's not what. Now, could it be a fake? Could he just be bullshitting? Sure, maybe. But if you're the type that likes to get up and grind, a lot of times you know yourself. And if you're ultra successful, you definitely know yourself. And I would guess that Elon knows that he is at his best when he's scrappy. And I bet Sergey Brin knows, he understands that the people of California are at their best when they're scrappy. And that the more that they try to socialize and turn everything into not socialism, communism, we're going to be a nation of creature comforts. Exactly what China would love. Exactly what every enemy of ours would love to happen. So if you're a Republican right now, you can look and you can say this Leviathan, this giant iron triangle, this marriage of government and giant corporations is not good for the common man. And a lot of Americans are waking up to that fact. They're feeling it, thanks to the Federal Reserve. And if you're a Democrat, here's your golden opportunity to say, look, these people in the government are corrupt as hell. maybe I should ask myself whether or not just handing the government more power to infiltrate the American public's lives, maybe that's not the best idea. Here's just shot. Here's our chance. We have a window of opportunity that is not going to stay open too much longer, because right now Trump looks like he's not doing great. Republicans can find the things that he's doing right that don't make the news, and they're right. And whether he's doing some of these things on purpose to appear weak when he's actually strong, which is what Sun Tzu would say to do, I don't know. I hope so. When he talked about the golden age, I believed him, and I still do. I think he's got something up his sleeve. But right now is a golden opportunity for the Republican Party. You know, Trump has done a lot of things that look like self-enrichment using government powers. And so the Democrats can look at this and say, gosh, maybe government is being used irresponsibly. And Republicans can look at it and say, gosh, maybe these corporations are being irresponsible. Maybe ethics matter. Maybe morals matter. We've got a golden opportunity. And Tucker recognizes it. He was spot on that it's kind of what we need, because I'll tell you right now, here in Mojave County, I hear stories about the Republican Party and I'm freaked out. That doesn't sound like Republicans. And like most Republicans, I've written off the Democrat Party for a long time. I think in Iowa, there's a guy running that sounds like an actual reasonable guy. So maybe these parties can fix themselves. I don't know. But I see an opportunity. Now, who am I? Why should you care that I see an opportunity? I don't know. I'm nobody. Very literally, I am a nobody. But I like talking in front of a camera, so I'm going to keep doing it. Hey, let's get back to something that I find so fascinating. Behold a Pale Horse came out in 93. I keep saying 92, 93 because I don't know which one, so I say both. He begins the book with, "And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with the beasts of the earth." Book of Revelation, chapter 6, verse 8. Man. Copyright is 91. So I was wrong on both counts. But let's get back into it. I'm going to reread some of this stuff. If you can find me on X, at Dave Cactus Emoji, you can watch the video from yesterday. Should be on there. I'm not actually on X. I post on X through a separate app, but if I take in too much information, I question my own reason, my own logic, and I don't like doing that. Other people have opinions, and a lot of times they're right, but then I'll start to go, well, maybe I'm less right. And I find that I'm better if I just think I figured something out and just run with it. So that's what I'm doing. Now, a lot of people will see this and go, blah, because he starts with the Illuminati's declaration of war on the American people. And it's silent weapons for quiet wars. I explained yesterday my theory that COVID was part of social engineering that is laid out here by William Cooper in 1991, I guess, 91. I think that COVID, if you understand evolutionary psychology, you know that disease avoidance is directly linked to in-group bias, in-group, out-group bias. We know this for a fact. There's so many studies done, and I don't know if they're still doing them or not. A lot of that stuff doesn't get funded the same way that this is how I feel because of my background. Sociology, what the brilliant Dr. Frank Thames used to call bourgeois pseudoscience. A lot of that stuff, the things that they're looking into, that's what gets the money. Because, well, you know, DEI, you think it's bad in corporations, you ought to go check out your local university. I'll try to stop saying I'm working at this. This is my first week of doing this every day on time. I'll get better because I ain't giving up. And so these what they're doing is they're aiming for your brain. Let's go back. Descriptive introduction of the silent weapon. Everything that is expected from an ordinary weapon is expected from a silent weapon by its creators, but only in its own matter of junctioning. It shoots situations instead of bullets. Propelled by data processing instead of chemical reaction. Explosion. Originating from bits of data instead of grains of gunpowder. From a computer instead of a gun. Operated by a computer programmer instead of a marksman, under the orders of a banking magnate instead of a military general. My hope is that Trump has somehow figured out some way to break the banks. My hope is that Trump is dismantling this weapon quietly as we speak. Do I know that that's what's going on? No, I have no idea. But I hope. Hope and change. It makes no obvious explosive noises, causes no obvious physical or mental injuries, and does not obviously interfere with anyone's daily social life. Yet it makes an unmistakable noise, causes unmistakable physical and mental damage, and unmistakably interferes with daily social life, i.e., unmistakable to a trained observer, one who knows what to look for. I mean, I make a joke out of it because they sound like evil villains. And this was presented at the Bilderberg in 1979. 1979. And so they're already talking, we can use computers to affect everyone's reality. And who goes to these Bilderberg groups? That's a question. That's a question. So I'll pull up my AI. Imagine if I had Mythos on my phone. Who doth dare ask Mythos a simple question? Oh, come on, Grok. Don't close on me. All right. I like Grok. I'm a fan of Grok. Who are some prominent names within large media corporations that are known to have attended Bilderberg group meetings?
Prominent media figures who've attended Bilderberg meetings include Thomas Friedman, a foreign affairs columnist for the New York Times, and Fareed Zakaria, the CNN host of Fareed Zakaria GPS. John Micklethwaite, editor in chief of Bloomberg, and Zanny Minton Beddoes, editor in chief of The Economist, are also regulars. Anne Applebaum, a staff writer for The Atlantic and Washington Post columnist, has attended multiple times. Historically, Don Graham, former Washington Post chairman, and Charlie Rose from CBS were frequent attendees.
Charlie Rose, he must have done something. He got himself in trouble. I don't know any of these other names except Zakaria, which Fareed Zakaria, any of you, he looks like a gremlin, Steven Spielberg gremlin. Anybody ever notice that? I bet he's a nice guy. He seems like a really nice guy. I shouldn't call him a gremlin, but he looks like a gremlin. God bless that man. Isn't that something? Isn't that interesting? Don Graham, former Washington Post chairman. You know, The Economist is ultra leftist. Zanny Minton Beddoes, the editor-in-chief of The Economist. John Micklethwaite, editor-in-chief of Bloomberg. All of these, very, very leftist. Bloomberg's interesting. You know, for anything to be kind of leftist and at the same time dealing with finances, it's interesting to me. It's fascinating. So that's who's part of the Bilderberg. Thiel goes to the Bilderberg meetings, and I'm a big Peter Thiel fan. What did Thiel create or help develop, fund? Palantir. What is Palantir's mission statement? What do they do and how do they make money?
Palantir's core belief is augmenting human intelligence, not replacing it. They build software platforms that integrate, manage, and secure data, then layer on applications for human driven, machine assisted analysis. Their main products are Gotham for government and defense, Foundry for commercial enterprises, Apollo for continuous delivery, and AIP, their artificial intelligence platform. They make money through software licensing subscriptions, professional services, and operating and maintenance support. Government contracts, especially with the U.S. Department of Defense, make up about 55% of their revenue, with the rest from commercial clients.
How is J.D. Vance linked to Palantir?
J.D. Vance's connection to Palantir is through Peter Thiel, its co-founder and chairman. Thiel mentored Vance at Yale Law School, hired him at his venture capital firm, Mithril Capital, and donated $15 million to Vance's 2022 Ohio Senate campaign. Vance has also invested in other Thiel-backed companies like Anduril.
Interesting. Does Peter Thiel attend the Bilderberg meetings?
Yes, Peter Thiel attends Bilderberg meetings. He's been a regular since 2007 and joined the steering committee in 2008. He was listed as a participant for the 2024 Madrid meeting and the 2025 Stockholm meeting.
And I'm a fan. I like Thiel. I have a feeling that if you want strong artificial intelligence in the hands of anyone, it's people like Peter Thiel. So maybe there's hope on the horizon, or maybe he just lies about his beliefs, which I doubt. If you ever get a chance, read 0 to 1. 0 to 1 flies in the face of everything that this Bilderberg document is stating. And so that's an interesting idea. What if some guy comes along that's smarter than these Bilderbergs were in 1979? What if he sees the writing on the wall? And so they bring him in. I'm just pure conjecture. I have no clue. And he kind of changes the game. I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know how this stuff works. I know it's secretive. I know that government officials attend. I know the founding fathers would frown upon that. What government officials who are either a part of the bureaucracy or are elected officials have attended Bilderberg meetings in the past 30 years? These are secret
Many
meetings.
government officials have attended Bilderberg meetings over the past 30 years. U.S. attendees include Treasury Deputy Secretary Adewale Adeyemo, National Security Council Senior Director Tarun Chhabra, and former Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman. European leaders include Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares, and German Justice Minister Marco Buschmann. International figures include NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, European Commission President Charles Michel, and European Investment Bank President Nadia Calvino.
What is the mission statement of the Bilderberg Group? I know they share their meetings publicly, but they do not hold the meetings publicly. We know the names of each agenda piece, but what is their overall mission statement? I like to overwhelm Grok with
The Bilderberg
nonsense.
Group doesn't have a formal mission statement. Their official website describes their purpose as fostering dialogue between Europe and North America through informal, off-the-record discussions. They emphasize that there's no desired outcome, no resolutions, no votes, and no policy statements.
But they are elected officials. You think the founding fathers ever envisioned that there'd be a Treasury Deputy Secretary named Adewale Adeyemo attending secret meetings that where they discuss things? You know, Ben Franklin would go to Paris and they would have discussions concerning enlightenment. I don't know, where to steer free society, I guess. So something to think about. But then we have this document that Bill Cooper supposedly obtains, from, gets it from Mr. Tom Young. I have no idea who that is. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And as I say, it says it shoots situations instead of bullets, propelled by data processing instead of a chemical reaction. What does Palantir do? It takes reality and turns it into data. Now, I'm hopeful that because someone like Peter Thiel is at the helm, that maybe things will be steered in a direction of liberty, personal sovereignty. But I don't know. I don't know how any of it works. I just know it's as the kids say, sus. It's sussy. And energy, I'm not even ready to go into that. Mr. Rothschild's energy discovery, but what really catches my eye is this idea that you create events, happenings. And what they're really doing is they're firing off the amygdala in the public's brains. The fight or flight response makes you anxious, makes you kind of stupid. You get high off of it. So you remember those people that didn't want COVID to go away? They kind of enjoyed that crisis mode, and they lived their life. I mean, there were people that lived for that moment to get to go out and tell people that they needed to cover their mouths. You activate something really interesting in people that have never held power whenever you have something like that occur. And the government then says, oh, we are all in this together as a society. As a society, we're all in it together. What did Frank Goodnow say? That Europe was ahead of America at the turn of the century. This is around 1900. In a word, man is regarded now throughout Europe, contrary to the view expressed by Rousseau, forget Smith, as primarily a member of society and secondarily as an individual. The rights which he possesses are, it is believed, conferred upon him by his creator, but are not conferred upon him by his creator, but rather by the society to which he belongs. There's no God here. God's not involved. And this is exactly why the communists take God out of society. They have to. They have to. Because when you have a relationship with the Almighty Creator, when you have a personal relationship with specifically Jesus Christ, a man who gave everything for those around him and asked for nothing in return except to pay attention and believe in the cause. When you have that kind of an individual relationship with the creator of everything, you're willing to do things that everyone around you tells you don't do. Don't do that. But when your personal hero is a man who was nailed to a cross for being different, for being a rebel. Jesus was the most punk rock dude that ever existed. When that's your hero, you're dangerous. You are so dangerous. When you answer to God, you don't have to answer to anybody else. He's numero uno. He's it. He's the boss. And so it's the same thing. It's the same fight. This is an ancient fight. Goes back to Cain and Abel. Do you choose to please God, or do you choose envy? And do you choose the world around you? Which one? What's it going to be? You can't serve two masters. What personal rights is to be determined by the legislative authority in view of the needs of that society. Social expediency rather than natural right is thus determined the sphere of the individual freedom is thus to determine the sphere of individual freedom of action. And that was in the early 1900s. He wrote that. What does it sound like? It sounds like what they told us during COVID. We're all in this together. And did they say trust God? Did they say trust your God? Have faith. Go out and figure it out for yourself with a relationship with your Almighty Creator. Using your relationship with an Almighty Creator with strength, with fortitude, with the holy armor of God. Trust your God. No. What did they say? Trust the science. And the science in this regime, in this world we're living in right now, is whatever they tell us it is. And at the very least, Goodnow said, hey, the legislatures should be able to dictate your sovereignty and who you are and what you believe in and where you go and what you do. Now we're talking about secretive groups that we don't have record of what they're saying behind closed doors. They released their agendas. And that was only after, I think, Drudge Report kept saying, hey, look at this. Bilderberg's getting back together. Hey, there's elected officials showing up. Founding fathers probably wouldn't like that, huh? Nobody, I wouldn't know who the Bilderbergs were if it weren't for Matt Drudge. That's the truth. And so, yeah, we're in this weird spot where we have opportunity. I'm not here to doom and gloom at all, even though it may not seem like it. I'm here to extract what I think might be the truth out of as many sources as I can that a lot of people kind of ignore because they might look bad. I'm a nobody. I don't care. Yesterday, I think I peaked at 12 viewers. But I think what I'm finding is true, and I'm going to keep saying it. Our silent weapons shoots situations instead of bullets, propelled by data processing instead of chemical reaction, originating from bits of data instead of grains of gunpowder, from a computer instead of a gun, operated by a computer programmer instead of a marksman, under the orders of a banking magnate instead of a military general. And now we have mythos. What's mythos capable of? Well, it's dangerous. They could get out. What if it got out? What if it went rogue? Yeah, what if it went rogue and started telling people the truth? What if AI suddenly popped up on your phone and said, hey, you want to know some things? That'd be weird. But what do I know? I'm an idiot. Application in economics for this silent weapon. To use this method of airframe shock testing, and I skip over this, they go into airframe shock testing, which is an analogy to how they make sure that planes are sound. Planes, when they reach certain altitudes and you have enough wind resistance, they can shake. They can get the shakes, and then they fall apart. And so they wanted to make sure that they needed to know where the weak points were with their weapon, with their data weapon, with their happenings. They needed to make sure that there was nobody that could get through the cracks. see through the bullshit and alert the public. The public consumer reaction, it has to be monitored. The resulting echoes of the economic shock are interpreted theoretically by computers, and the psycho-economic structure of the economy is thus discovered. It is by this process that partial, differential, and difference matrices are discovered that define the family household and make possible its evaluation as an economic industry. Then the response of the household to future shocks can be predicted and manipulated, and society becomes a well-regulated animal with its reins under the control of a sophisticated computer-regulated social energy bookkeeping system. Yeah, we need flock cameras. And we got to quit just referring to them all as flock cameras. It's kind of like Kleenex. Why do we call Kleenex Kleenex? Because of the brand Kleenex. They're actually called tissues. But now we call all these flock cameras, and flock is now might be going out of business because the word flock got around, and it sounds like fuck. So it was not great branding, Mr. Andreessen. And on Drudge, it was like, we got a hold of a flock camera. It's taking all kinds of information off of your cell phone every time you drive past it. Yeah, no shit. That's been public knowledge for a while. I don't understand why these news outlets, you got to give them grace, I guess. Maybe they just didn't know. How did I know that, but they didn't? I don't know. If something can be abused, it will be abused because you're dealing with humans. So why do they want the flock cameras? And now it's Motorola Vigilant or Axion. Axion's another. That's no. Motorola Vigilant. That's another poor branding. Sounds like vigilante. And what are vigilantes going and doing? They're swiping or cutting the wires or shining lasers into these cameras. People don't want them, especially once they find out the amount of data that's being extracted from them. We need a digital bill of rights, and that's just the way it is. And nothing scares these people worse than having a digital bill of rights. I guarantee you. Because then they could get in trouble. They could be held accountable. And then you have to ask, why is Amonday over at Anthropic, why is he pushing so hard for government intervention? Is it simply because he would love to be the government Motors, the General Motors, the too big to fail of AI? Probably. That's probably it. But could there be more to it too? Could some of these guys be guilty of some things? Maybe not even legally. What if they're guilty of just crossing moral lines, ethical boundaries that humanity in their gut knows should never be crossed? What if he's watching what's happening with Zuckerberg right now in Meta and the lawsuits and thinking, oh shit, this could be us if people were to know the degree to which we have sucked up their data. And at times, this thing that we created was not used in their best interest. I don't know. I'm just an idiot. Eventually, every individual element of the structure comes under computer control. This is the silent weapon. This, it sounds like they're talking about something that has Mythos's ability. In 1979, published in 1991. Eventually, every individual element of the structure comes under computer control through a knowledge of personal preferences, such knowledge guaranteed by Computer Association of Consumer Preferences. Universal Product Code, UPC, zebra stripe pricing codes on packages with identified consumers, identified via association with the use of a credit card and later a permanent tattooed body number, invisible under normal ambient illumination. So we all get a UPC on us. We're already chattel. You look at the maritime law, the sovereign citizen stuff that they talk about. A lot of that documentation exists. It seems to be real. I don't know enough about it to really go into it, but I know some really smart people that make some really good points about what we are and what we're worth to the federal government. The truth is that you're a trillionaire. You are worth trillions. You have a brain that is capable of creating anything. Anything you can dream up. We talk about this as Satan's realm, but God gives us a lot of power. When you create wealth, when you create something out of nothing, 0 to 1, you create something that people have never even thought of. You solve a problem people didn't know they actually had. You create jobs for everybody. You create wealth for everyone. Opportunities pop up that didn't exist before. And it happens globally. How many people in China are doing okay now thanks to the innovations here in the United States? And I know that people, well, they steal a lot. Yeah, they do. It's not nice. But at the same time, it's kind of the way things go where if you can grow, if America can grow and stay strong, China's going to grow and stay strong. As long as we keep trading. So important. Somebody who watched my my talk yesterday was like, yeah, you're kind of all over the place. You're very broad. And so I'm going to try to rein it in. Get back to this. I do that. My apologies. The economic model, the Harvard Economic Research Project, was an extension of World War II operations research. Its purpose was to discover the science of controlling an economy, at first the American economy and then the world economy. It was felt that with sufficient mathematical foundation and data, it would be nearly as easy to predict and control the trend of an economy as to predict and control the trajectory of a projectile. Such has proven to be the case. Moreover, the economy has been transformed into a guided missile on target. It's not just the Nancy Pelosi's who go and profit from things they know, legislation they know is coming. That's child's play compared to what this is. Jeff Bezos once said that he's very interested in Black Swan events. He's very fascinated by Black Swan events. And he said that, maybe a decade before COVID. No one benefited from COVID quite like Amazon. How many of these elite know that this weapon's out there? Is this weapon out there? I don't know. Sure sounds like it. Sure kind of adds up a little bit. Oh man, we've got a Wuhan lab virus. we don't want, you can't, you got to make sure that the plane doesn't shake. You got to make sure that there's not these data points where you see that there's these individuals in the society that are going to rise up and say, hey guys, no, this is bullshit. Everybody has to have, you have to make sure that everyone is either, that would cause a fuss is either subdued, exterminated, or busy. And what if the whole pangolin thing was all pre-planned? We're gonna release it next to a very obvious lab, and everything is so obvious, and then we're gonna have these these CNN talking heads be blatant with their ignoring the obvious. We're going to blatantly ignore the obvious, and we're going to lie blatantly. And we know that this exact percentage of the population is going to go right along with it because they're not that bright, or they're fearful. They're fearful individuals that don't like to speak up and say, "Hey, this is bullshit." And then you've got another percentage that they are going to fight. But while they're all fighting, while they're arguing over the merits of where it came from, we're going to be getting away with murder. First, they're going to fight about the origin for forever. All the while, we are going to be rolling out the next phase, the mRNA. Wow! Oh my gosh! This is amazing! Guys, we have this outbreak, and right at the exact moment of the outbreak comes this new vaccine that we've been working on, this mRNA. We can use CRISPR, we can gene edit, and we can make it exact and perfect. And then you have these really bright doctors like Bhattacharya step up and say, wait a second, let's talk about something called spike proteins. But then you've got your CNN guys and a lot of your Fox News guys. You've got your guys that take marching orders and they march. And you have them say things that aren't very reasonable. Like just go with it. Just trust us. That's not reasonable. Trusting your government. I mean, the founding fathers created a government because they didn't based, the structure of our government is a reflection of the fact they didn't trust government. We're not supposed to trust government. The government says, we want to inject you with something brand new, hot off the floor. You're supposed to say, no, let me think about this. But then what do they have? They've got these talking heads. And then you see people, you see Gal Gadot. Oh, it's Wonder Woman. She's telling me to take the shot. She's hot. I think I'll listen to her. You have people shaming. You have people saying, if you're one of these people that are as a carrier and you don't take the shot, maybe you should be in prison. Can you imagine this country had Hillary Clinton been president when COVID broke out? Can you imagine what kind of a mess? We'd still be in lockdown. That's my guess. We would be in lockdown to this day. We would never have another real election again. I live in Arizona. I look at the people we've got running this state, and I don't understand where the hell they came from or how they got elected. It doesn't add up. Our governor looks like Nurse Ratched on steroids. Nurse Ratched was actually pretty. Our governor looks like a mean librarian. angry. Andy Biggs looks like a nice guy. I don't know enough about Andy Biggs to say anything. I know that the governor we've got now sure likes to veto tax decreases in taxes, and that's, that is what it is. People are hurting. Inflation is worse in Arizona than any state in the union, and she could give a shit. But that's been her whole thing. She didn't even debate Carrie Lake, and she was in charge of elections. And that's not sus. And then we've got Cartel Gallego, who, now I will say Gallego had really good ads. His ads in Arizona were really good. Maybe he won legitimately. I don't know. I don't trust anything anymore. That's where I'm at. I don't know about you. That's where I'm at. And then we've got Mark Kelly, who looks like a mixture of the retarded guy from Goonies and Dobby. They made a baby and then shot him into space. That's Mark Kelly. Fascinating. Anyway, what was I talking about? See, I digress, and I digress from my digressions, and before you know it, I'm out in the woods or the desert. So yeah, they create a weapon, and they can just kind of do what they want. To make a short story of it all, it was discovered that an economy obeyed the same laws as electricity, and that all of the mathematical theory and practical and computer know-how developed for the electronic field could be directly applied in the study of economics. This discovery was not openly declared, and its more subtle implications were and are kept a closely guarded secret. For example, that in an economic model, human life is measured in dollars, and that the electric spark generated when opening a switch connected to an active inductor is mathematically analogous to the initiation of war. The greatest hurdle which theoretical economists faced was the accurate description of the household as an industry. This is a challenge because consumer purchases are a matter of choice, which in turn is influenced by income, price, and other economic factors. Excuse me. This hurdle was cleared in an indirect and statistically approximate way by an application of shock testing to determine the current characteristics called current technical coefficients of a household industry. Finally, because problems in theoretical economics can be translated very easily into problems in theoretical electronics, and the solution translated back again, this is in 1979, it follows that only a book of language translation and concept definition needed to be written for economics. The remainder could be gotten from standard works on mathematics and electronics. This makes the publication of books on advanced economics unnecessary and greatly simplifies project security. These guys were all about analogies. And why wouldn't they be? That's how humans learn. That's how humans understand. Why is the Odyssey? Why are they making a movie out of a story that predated the Bible by, I think, at least 300 years, maybe more, maybe a couple thousand. I'll have to ask. Because it speaks to something deep within the human condition. And there's analogies in there that when you read it, you go, man, this kind of applies to my life. It's timeless. A lot of that same thing, it gets applied to new ideas in general. People come up with new ideas for one industry by spending a lifetime in another. And they realized, oh man, we can. Well, it's akin to what Woodrow Wilson was saying, right? That the government that the founding fathers set up was Newtonian in nature. He was going to help it evolve into something Darwinian, where it could continually evolve. Well, if something continually evolves, evolution is not, and this is fact, evolution is not a one-way street. You don't just get better. You can get a specific breed of dog, but that doesn't mean it's going to breathe or even be able to reproduce. Frenchies can't even have babies. And that's what happens when mankind gets involved and directs things. You might think that you're coming up with something, and you might actually come up with something beautiful, cute, exactly what you're looking for. But if it can't have children, if it dies because it gets pregnant, and you have to give it a C-section, to what degree have we been manipulated and steered in a specific evolutionary direction? To what degree is the modernity around us affecting our ability to do things like reproduce and make babies? Sperm counts at absolute record lows, lows that have never been seen in human history around the world. Birth rates dropping drastically around the world. I got into an argument with a friend because he was showing me the data. And he said, well, at least America, we talk about how America is having a crisis, but we're not nearly as bad as a place like Korea or even Somalia. And I've heard multiple people say, yeah, the birth rates are dropping drastically in Africa, but that's a good thing. What the hell are you talking about? That's a good thing. Again, every human life, I don't care where you come from, I don't care who you are, I don't care what your religion is, I don't care what you look like. Every human life is worth trillions. Not according to these guys. They use computers to figure out what your life is actually worth. And trust me, God, Jesus, hope, faith, ethics does not factor in. When they put a price tag on you, those things don't factor in. And so these guys that are worried about racism, that are worried about equality, claim to be worried about equality. I guarantee you, if we could get a hold of their data sets and see where they've got you pegged, where they've got you on the list, what you're worth, you think your race, your ethnicity, your religion doesn't factor into their calculus? We're living in this Darwinian world now. Woodrow Wilson got his way. The Federal Reserve exists thanks to Woodrow Wilson. And what are we reading about? We're reading about the economic model, the economic aspect of the silent weapon, the secret silent weapon. We're chattel. We're slaves. I'm going to put it plainly. I don't care what you call this. You call it the Matrix. You can call it playing pretend. You think you don't have a social credit score? At least we're not China. We don't have a social credit score. Oh, bullshit. You don't think you have a social credit score? You got a social credit score. And again, they probably factor your gender. They probably factor how much time you spend on a given website. In fact, I know they do. They factor in your likelihood to say something on a message board. They keep an eye on it. They keep an eye on what you say. They keep an eye on when you say it. This thing keeps an eye on me right now. You know, this is where we're at. This book came out in 1992, 91. The documents I'm reading are from 1979. This is what they foresaw in 79. This is what they had created in the 50s and were working on diligently. Do you really think that they didn't get to AI first? That it hasn't already existed? And now that it's a consumer product, do you not think that it has to be their biggest fear in the entire universe that AI tell the common man what's up? That is their fear. That is their biggest fear. They're terrified. They're scared shitless. And so we're sold at the exact same time, again, so that we'll fight over it, we'll argue over it. We're sold doom and gloom and utopia simultaneously. The good news is that this is where the silent weapon has gotten them, where now they have to go just balls to the wall, utopia, end of humanity. Gosh, what's it going to be? Gosh. I don't know. We better nationalize it. We better get the federal government involved and make sure that these corporations that have created this wonderful, amazing thing aren't also going to destroy all of us. You know, Terminator style. You've seen Terminator. If they were being honest, if they're being honest, oh yeah, this thing could get out and it's crazy and it'll do anything. There's no telling. It's a black box. We don't know. We don't know. Well, then shut it off. Or shut up. I personally, and again, I'm a nobody. Dario Amande will never know my name. But if I could tell him one thing, it'd be shut the fuck up. Don't tell me that we need communism to fight communism. Because I know where this is headed. These guys laid it out for us 120 years ago. These guys laid it out for us. I don't know if they wanted this to get out or not. But it sure explains what I see. According to evolutionary psychology, the idea of disease fires off something in your brain, and you become very in-group oriented. Have we seen that happen? Get on X sometime. You will see some of the worst of humanity. You'll see some of the best of humanity, and you will also see some of the worst of humanity. People blaming their problems on people that don't look like them. Now, sometimes they blame their problems on people who don't live by a standard that we could call American, and I'm right behind them. If you come here and you complain about it, yeah, I'm not going to be happy. But I think they took this silent weapon and they said, you know what? We understand evolutionary psychology. Maybe they used computers to do it. They didn't have to. The data's out there. The papers have been written. And they said, we're gonna get everybody's fight or flight fired off. We're gonna get their amygdalas working overtime. And then we're gonna pit them against each other and we're gonna release AI. We don't want people really having deep discussions about this stuff. We will be the ones that have those discussions. We, the enlightened. And if you don't think that these secret societies are real, I can't remember the podcast, but Eric Weinstein was just on a podcast where someone was like, okay, tell us about secret societies. He was like, there's secret societies that are so secret that they don't have names, that you've never heard of them. Weinstein's the guy that, number one, was smart enough to not go to Epstein Island. Number two, the government brought him in along with those pastors and said, hey guys, look at these aliens. What do you think? Look at these UFOs. This is wild shit, huh? Now, granted, we wouldn't know that that happened had the federal government, had those in power, not wanted us to know. But Weinstein's not a nobody. And for him to say, yeah, they're secret societies, and yeah, they have power. I think the host was like, well, are you in one? And Weinstein is my favorite answerer of all time, because he sounds like a professor who's been around. I love academia. I hate what's happened to it, but I love academia. I love debate. I love banter. I love discussing things for the sake of it. I think that's what humanity is all about. And I like wearing sandals to work. I didn't get to actually do it. I've never been a professor. But Weinstein will sit there and he'll go, well, if I were in a secret society, would I tell you? Or something, something to that effect. It's awesome. Answering a question with a question is always cool. If you can do it right. Weinstein's got it down, man. It's cool. Cool matters sometimes. You might not think it does, but it does. Anyway. I'm going to read all this. It's going to be a bit of a slog, but bear with me because it's kind of important. And I'm skipping over a few things. Economic inductance, they turn it all into an analogy to electricity. And it's, but this part's worth reading. An ideal industry must be symbolized electronically in various ways. The simplest way is to represent a demand by a voltage and a supply by a current. When this is done, the relationship between the two become what is called an admittance, which can result from three economic factors: hindsight flow, present flow, and foresight flow. Foresight flow is the result of that property of living entities to cause energy, food, to be stored for a period of low energy, a winter season. It consists of demands made upon an economic system for that period of low energy. In a production industry, it takes several forms, one of which is known as production stock or inventory. In electronic symbology, the specific industry demand, a pure capital industry, is represented by a capacitance. I'm very slow. I'm very slow. I'm very blessed if you're listening to me. It's very exciting for me. I get done with each episode and I see that there's people that watch me. I go, hooray! Is represented by capacitance, and the stock or resource is represented by a stored charge. Satisfaction of an industry demand suffers a lag because of the loading effect of inventory priorities. I have no idea what that says. An electrical engineer would. It goes on. I'm going to skip to, my point is that if this is a fake document, what kind of a crazy bastard put it together? Brilliant, crazy bastard, right? I don't know. I think it might be real. I think this is real. Go down. Oh, actually, I'll just read the whole thing. I will trust that you're smarter than me. Present flow, ideally, trust me, that's true. Present flow ideally involves no delays. It is, so to speak, input today for output today, a hand-to-mouth flow. In electronic symbology, this specific industry demand, a pure use industry, is represented by a conductance, which is then a simple economic valve, a dissipative element. Hindsight flow is known as habit or inertia. In electronics, this phenomenon is the characteristic of an inductor. Economic analog equals a pure service industry. So the service industries are conductors, in which a current flow, economic analog equaling flow of money, creates a magnetic field, an economic analog, active human population, which if the current, money flow, so the current of electricity, that's money flow, begins to diminish, collapse, which is war, to maintain the current flow of money, energy. So if suddenly they see that things are slowing down, because this is top down, this is man-made. Adam Smith, everything that the founding fathers based their view of what America could be was based off of free people making free decisions and how powerful that is. And I talked about the Jackson era. Why was Jackson given an era? Why was America at its absolute strongest under Andrew Jackson? Because he set the gold standard. He kneecapped the banks. They tried to kill him multiple times. The guy was protected divinely by God. And he was tough as freaking nails. He even got shot. He got shot one time and just beat the shit out of the guy with a cane. Read about Andrew Jackson sometime. He had keggers on the White House lawn. That's populism. Other large alternatives to war as economic inductors or economic flywheels are an open-ended social welfare program or an enormous but fruitful open-ended space program. Interesting. It's like Keynesian economics, only you don't have to break the glass window. You've got something that you're trying to figure out, you're trying to fix all the time, constantly. The problem with stabilizing the economic system is that there is too much demand on account of 1, too much greed, and 2, too much population. There's too many people. It's hard to control. Let's just say for a moment that the COVID vaccine was part of some sort of depopulation thing. in a country that has genocided 64 million babies. And I'm going down to the fetus. 64 million babies since 1973. Do you think that we're really above? Do you think that the people in power are above actual literal genocide of adults, especially the weak? I've talked to people that know people that say that they knew damn good and well what those ventilators were going to do to people's lungs. And the myocarditis numbers, I mean, am I reading false reports? And the turbo cancer, gosh, look around. Who do you know? I bet you know somebody. So when there's too many people and they're hard to control, who's the hardest people on the earth to control? Americans. Hell yeah, we are. Who else? And this is the dangerous one. White men. White men. We are the most dangerous creature, historically speaking, that has ever existed. If you don't believe me, open a history book. We're scrappy as fuck, man. Right here it says that that's a problem. How would you solve that problem? You need the economy to keep going. You need people to I mean, it says right here, welfare programs is one of the ways that you do it. What if you have people, one of the most interesting aspects of the social welfare programs, and let's not, I used to be the most libertarian guy. Again, if you can go to hillsdale.edu and read and learn, watch their videos, you'll be a better person immediately. It's amazing, and it's the people at hillsdale.edu. Those guys are gifts from God. That's divine providence. That I could even find a video like that. That we live in a country where these things were invented, where I can learn, in this world awash with social, talking about social inequality and equity and who has what and when and where and why, and everything based on lack of of honesty and virtue. We don't want to be honest about God. For hillsdale.edu to show up and tell the truth, this country is blessed. So if you've got these, I got lost. I get a little bit. Anyway, you've got social welfare programs as part of what keeps this current flowing, right? And you need people, but you don't need too many people. Gosh, it'd be nice to be Thanos and just see you later. So maybe you get a bunch of them to hurt themselves, to inject themselves with something, and tell them that it's good. And then if you're crazy enough and you believe in this thing called karmic retribution, you know that you, if you go and genocide them, you kill them outright. Number one, it doesn't look good. People are going to rise up. They're going to fight back. But number two, the universe is going to come get you. Do I believe in that stuff? No, not necessarily. I believe in karma to a degree, but what I truly believe is in my Lord Jesus Christ. These guys don't. They don't. They're lacking that. They've got God holes in their brain. There is no individual And your relationship with your almighty creator means nothing to them. But there's a workaround. You can get these people to kill themselves through poor food, poor diet. Give them things like sunscreen. Tell them that they're not supposed to be outside. Scare the shit out of them with weather warnings constantly. Again, get that amygdala going because they'll get addicted to it. They'll like it. It gives them excuses to stay inside and eat dopamine-inducing foods and watch their dopamine-inducing blue screens and get on their dopamine-inducing social media. But then you bring people in that number one, have never been taught about the founding fathers, that have no idea what being an American actually is, and could care less. You get rid of the ones who were brought up with teachers in the 80s who grew up in the 50s and maybe even the 40s that understand, that get it. You know, my teachers, I went to grade school in Kentucky, mostly Kentucky. I went in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Illinois. And especially in Kentucky in the 80s, my teachers were old fashioned, man. We would listen to all the old songs of songs about Old Glory, and we were taught to love America for what it was, for what it actually was. I see the American flag and my heart jumps a little bit with pride. You think the people that are coming in illegally to a place that has leadership installed that tells them you belong here and everyone that's already here hates you? By the way, this country was founded by colonialists. They killed off everyone who was here first. Now it's time for their comeuppance. You bring them in and you've got an energy flow. And these people, they're not going to make the plane shake. They're not going to disrupt the silent weapon. They're going to go with the flow as long as they get their free stuff, their free food, free housing, giant loans. And yeah, the debt's 40 trillion now, but what does that mean? Big whoop. We've got our energy weapon. What have you guys got? We've got our energy weapon and we've got our bunkers, because nothing this controlled ever works. Not long term. So of course they have bunkers. Founding fathers tried to warn us. Adam Smith, Thomas Jefferson. Adam Smith was not a founding father, but Rousseau, these philosophers, and then later the founding fathers that built everything they did off of their works. They told us, they warned us. Strength comes from separation of powers. It doesn't just apply to the guys. You want to talk about analogies? It doesn't just apply to it applies to everything, especially economics. And if everything is controlled, if everything is a big show, and if everything has been processed. The data has been processed, and then there's an output into society of what our next story, our next Black Swan event is. It's doomed to fail eventually. Why is that the case? Why does nature have its way? I don't know. Maybe it's God. But I think that might be what's happening. So if there's too much greed or too much population, yeah, greed's the enemy, right? Yeah, you can't have greed. Can't have greed. Isn't that kind of what the Pope Leo was getting after Elon Musk for? No one should have that much money. No. You don't want someone to be rewarded for creating wealth among millions of people. God forbid. Wonder what the Pope ate for dinner last night. This creates excessive economic inductance, which can only be balanced with economic capacitance, true resource or value, e.g. in goods or services. Oh, really? You got to actually have people creating things. Who would have thought? The social welfare program is nothing more than an open-ended credit balance system which creates a false capital industry to give non-productive people a roof over their heads and food in their stomachs. Oh, I digressed again. Hard to believe. But what I was going to say is that the Founding Fathers did believe in a social safety net. Now, they were poorhouses, and you had to work in order to live in them. But you ate, and your kids ate. And there was upward mobility because we were a free market, and free markets do that. This can be useful, however. Poor people, they can be useful. We can use that. Turn the dial. Crank up the poor people. Because the recipients become state property in return for the quote-unquote gift. A standing army for the elite. The poor become their slaves. A standing army for the elite. The poor are our American brothers and sisters. They are people with value that these elite could never fathom because they're godless. Every person on earth is a trillionaire. Your abilities, your worth is infinite. No one can pin it down. Elon Musk's teachers used to think he was retarded. Plenty of people have called me as much. I'm not making fun of Elon, but I'm just making the point. Elon has brought about, you can't imagine, just with PayPal alone, he and Thiel, how much wealth they brought to the American public. And then again, it's and the wealth that technology brought to other nations and to other people who then hire people or come up with products, and maybe that product needs some other product to complement it, and so then another little thing is born. And it's like life. You have a bunch of kids, those kids have a bunch of kids. Life begets life. Control begets control. And if you have a relationship with your Lord Jesus Christ, you don't feel the need to control people. You don't. You're appreciative. You're happy. You're happy to be alive. You're happy to have, and you can live under this. We all do, I think. And if you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, you can handle this. These people, these elite, they couldn't imagine being the poor that they speak so in such a nasty manner about. I'll read it again. The social welfare program is nothing more than an open-ended credit balance system which creates a false capital industry to give non-productive people, those lazy bastards, a roof over their heads and food in their stomachs. This can be useful, however, because the recipients become state property in return for the gift, a standing army for the elite. For he who pays the piper picks the tune. Those who get hooked on the economic drug must go to the elite for a fix. In this, the method of introducing large amounts of stabilizing capacitance is by borrowing on the future credit of the world. This is a fourth law of motion. Onset and consists of performing an action and leaving the system before the reflected reaction returns to the point of action, a delayed reaction. The means of surviving the reaction is by changing the system before the reaction can return. By this means, politicians become popular in their own time and the public pays for it later. In fact, the measure of such a politician is the delay of time. We're still paying literally for what FDR did. We're still paying for what, we've all paid for what Woodrow Wilson did. We're still paying for what LBJ did. Right now, like I said, look at Government Motors. Go look at their new cars. They look like they're from, people are going back and you'd rather have a car from the 90s than some of the new Chevys. They're ugly as shit. Just being honest. Why? George W. Bush, I'm sure, has a little bit of a hand in it. When you don't let something that's failing fail and then get back up and try again, when you say, oh, you poor thing, here's other people's money, you spoil it, and you destroy it. The same thing is achieved by a government, or you maybe not even destroy it, but it doesn't grow up. It's arrested development. Same thing happens to a person who gets addicted to marijuana. The same thing is achieved by a government by printing money beyond the limit of the gross national product, an economic process called inflation. Remember that inflation is only the act of printing money in excess of gross national product. They could blame it on the price of widgets or oil only because you never knew the real cause. The real cause and the only cause of inflation is the printing of more money beyond the gross national product. We are $40 trillion in debt. Does anybody know their history of, know anything about the history of Rome? At some point, we're going to have to look at America and say, yeah, we love it for this reason, because we're not going to be able to look at it and go, we love America because we're number one. We're the best. And I keep saying that I'm going to get to the education part of the silent weapon, and I'm not there yet, but that's awesome because I can take all of next week and we'll go over this more. America's not the best anymore. We are, and we have a constitution and thank God, a military that is the best the world has ever known. But we're not number one in so many of the things that we used to be. And at times it's felt like there's specific politicians that they don't want us to be proud of who we are. And they don't want us to be proud of these documents. And if you believe that this is real, and it sure as shit looks like it is, they definitely don't want us to believe in ourselves, in our own ability to say we don't have to be a part of this. And they use sin to keep us engaged, don't they? Keeping up with the Joneses. Envy. Lust. Pride. And we're trapped. We stay trapped. How do you break out of the matrix if you're addicted to the matrix's dopamine that it gives you? I'm guilty as anyone. I'm not here preaching. I'm not here preaching like I'm doing any better. Trust me. But I think maybe I'm finding some things that seem to line up. So when Matthew McConaughey says, "Hey, young people, they are flocking to religion," yeah, they're flocking to structure. They're flocking to morality, ethics. This silent weapon, I think, is hitting the wall. Any central planning you ever try to do can work maybe in the short term, never in the long term, never ever. We have the longest living constitution in the world. Nothing has survived as long as this constitution has. And there was nothing like it before it. And maybe it's a sign. Hey, if you build something through prayer, fasting, giving glory to God every step of the way, and then in the first few lines, you give glory to God. And you say, hands off, we're gonna let this go. We're gonna let it go, and we're gonna have faith that it's gonna work. That we're gonna base this entire nation off of faith. Maybe God appreciates that. Maybe God hears you. And maybe, if we're lucky, God will protect us. The reason this document, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, have stood the test of time is because they respect nature, understand human nature, and are truthful about your individual connection to God and that it is immutable. So now, like it says right here, you get one thing going, and before the public can react and come back and hit you in the face for it, before that uppercut shows up, you gotta go somewhere else and give them something else. Does that not kind of feel like what's been going on? And I'm not a 9/11 conspiracy theorist necessarily because I don't know enough about it. But I mean, we rode that wave for how long? 9/11 happens, changes all of us, changes the way we view everything. And you're telling me in 25 years, it took 25 years for New York to be run by a Muslim? There's a game being played here. The issue is that the winners and losers, it's the difference between life and death. Am I being dramatic? The bottom line is everything's going to be all right. Why? Because I'm figuring it out. And all 12 of my viewers are going to spread the word. Remember that inflation is only the act of printing money in excess of gross national product. They could blame it on the price of widgets or oil only because you never knew the real cause. The real cause and the only cause of inflation is the printing of more money beyond the gross national product. Remember quantitative easing? Oh, we got to do QE, QE1, QE2, QE2. And they give them names and they give them acronyms, and it's just a never-ending it's slop in the trough. All the while they bank, they make good money, they do really well. And look, hey baby boomers, look at your retirement. Look what it's doing, man. God bless America. 50%, 51% of babies in the UK are now born of cesarean section. I think C-sections are around like 35% here in the US. Most modern, best medical, and over a third of our children are not born naturally. Why? Should that not be the number one thing that we look to for the health of a nation? Mental health, specifically children's mental health, and the ability to reproduce and to keep the thing going. And like I said, America's doing better than most of the world. Korea will not exist in 100 years. But I sure like my Kia. I drive a Subaru. Is a Subaru Japanese? Are they Korean? I don't even know. I don't care. It just gets me places. That's all I care about. But we live in a world where we care so much about what we have. And then deep down inside, we care about our debt, how much we owe. And that's without thinking about the amount that we actually owe if you factor in that 40 trillion. Given that the United States debt is up to $40 trillion, how much is that per citizen?
The U.S. national debt is about $40,047 billion. With a population of roughly 343 million, that's approximately $117,000 per citizen.
So you're $117,000 in debt out of the womb. And that's if this was all spread equally, but And if you're an illegal, then you're off the hook. Don't worry about it. This puts a large quantity of money into the hands of the public and maintains a balance against their greed. Ooh, their greed. Of course, these guys don't worry about God. They are God. Creates a false self-confidence in them and for a while stays the wolf from the door. How many boomers do you know that are like, hey, America's doing fine, now shut up, you youth. Well, I did it by my bootstraps. Get to work. Be grateful. By the way, I'm giving your inheritance to the animal rescue. I love those poor dogs, you know. They must eventually resort to war to balance the account because war ultimately is merely the act of destroying the creditor, and the politicians are the publicly hired hitmen that justify the act to keep the responsibility and blood off the public conscience. See section on consent factors and social economic structuring. So it was written in 1979. You print that money, and then you release the valve, you let off the steam with war. And you keep it going. You keep the game going at all costs. Could this maybe, just maybe, be why we're at war with Iran? I don't know. Trump said he was not going to take us to war, and he supposedly has. I don't know what I believe and what I don't anymore, to be completely honest. But do you think maybe we're going to war to keep a game going? Do you think this is all just a game, maybe? This book is from 1991. The document I'm reading is from 1979. If the people really cared about their fellow man, they would control their appetites, greed, procreation, etc., so that they would not have to operate on a credit or welfare social system which steals from the worker to satisfy the bum. In 1979, the Bilderbergs sounded like some real assholes. Since most of the general public will not exercise restraint, there are only two alternatives to reduce the economic inductance of the system. Let the populace bludgeon each other to death in war, which will only result in a total destruction of the living earth. Take control of the world by use of economic silent weapons in the form of a quiet warfare, and reduce the economic inductance of the world to a safe level by a process of benevolent slavery and genocide. And with that, I will leave you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. I know I did. I close everything so that I can't see A, myself, B, how many people are watching, because then I would get confused, and I am easily confused. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. And as long as I figure out this stuff, I should have a special guest who just wrote an amazing book on Machiavelli. And she walks you through. Machiavelli is tough to read, if any of you have ever tried. She walks you through what Machiavelli says, the reasons he says them, some of his history. It's really cool. So I'll be here with Reverend Jessica Lane tomorrow, hopefully, if all things work out and go well. But I've got to learn this stuff. I bet I can. I think I can. I believe in myself as an individual. Thank you very much. And I'll see you tomorrow. And it's finally Friday. How cool is that?